Andrew Urquhart with you on the program today. Over in Australia, they've had a royal visit and, well, a bit of a right royal dust-up as well. Speaking of royalty, Aussie correspondent Dr. Craig Heilmann joins us this morning. Kia ora, how are you?
Kia ora, Andrew, and I'm glad you noticed I was back in Australia, and it was a royal welcome that was rolled out for me yesterday. My dog raced straight to the door when I got home. So,
Oh, look at that! That's probably a nicer welcome than King Charles got, at least from some Aussie politicians. Look, we're getting over the fact that King Charles decided to go to Australia and then just go past us on the way to the Chogham conference. Didn't even stop over for duty free, which is a little bit disappointing. However, yes, a bit of a controversial reaction from at least one Aussie politician, Craig.
yeah, we've got a wonderful senator called Lydia Thorpe from Victoria. You're welcome to have her, by the way. Could we deport her under 501 status or something? She's a bit of a crazy lady, crazy maker too. She screamed at him, "You're not my king." And demanded a treaty, and then used some other colourful expletives in front of the poor old king. And she's justified it on the basis that when she declared an oath to become a senator and she was supposed to swear to the Queen and all of her heirs, she now claims she only gave her oath to the Queen's heirs.
Something else which she said, which I thought, well, gosh, that's unusual. Maybe we could chip in for a dictionary. She says, in order to be a sovereign, you have to live in the place that you're sovereign of. I'm not sure that that's ever applied to the British Empire.
But doesn't the definition of sovereignty mean I get to do what I want?
Well, yeah, no, there's a little bit of that. Well, I mean, this is not the general feeling of the Aussie population, of course, but what's been the reaction from the public and from, her fellow politicians, Craig?
I think it's been generally positive. I mean, Albo was Albo was a Republican, but he was crawling all over King Charles and blowing, and we're hiding the letters that our prime ministers have written back and forth to the Queen and to the royalty over the years. We're not going to let the public see them. I mean, you can just imagine Australian politicians saying they're Republicans on the one hand and grovelling and crawling on the other to get knighthoods and all sorts of things afterwards. I don't suppose we're alone in that, are we? Australian politicians, maybe Kiwis are the same. No, I think it's been really positive. And King Charles has said, hey, you guys want to become a republic, knock yourselves out, go for it. He's not standing in the way. It just shows you how conservative the Australian public generally is. They just don't want to change their constitution for anything. They're kind of happy with the way things are. So I think it'll be a long, long time, mate, probably beyond even Charles's time before Australia became a republic.
I think it's good strategy from Anthony Albanese, though, because it's usually ex-prime ministers who get the knighthood, and he may soon have that role with the next election coming up.
He may soon be getting a knighthood, mate. Look, he is certainly. He won't last as long as Justin Trudeau, but he may be on the same scrap heap soon.
Well, there we go. Hey, something which I wanted to pick up on, though, this call for a treaty between the Indigenous people of Australia and the Crown. Is this a Me Too thing? Is this New Zealand's got something that we don't have?
Yes.
Is it basically following the lines of Te Tiriti o Waitangi, what it's meant for us as a nation? Indigenous people in Australia want some of that as well?
No, definitely, Andrew. I mean, our Indigenous folks who are activists and screaming for all sorts of things are generally following what is going on in New Zealand. They'll be their ideas and their actions will be derivative of the Māori sovereignty movement in New Zealand. So they'll be learning every step of the way. It's just very, very different because there is an actual treaty in New Zealand and there just never was in Australia. So now we have to do things retrospectively in terms of land rights and solving some of the issues that are going on. The other issue in Australia, of course, is there's a far smaller percentage of the Australian population is actually Australian Aboriginal or First Nations, whereas in New Zealand there's 16% plus in terms of people that can claim, and probably more if you take in people who just have some small percentage. So, there's probably every reason to treat these cases differently and in some ways the same, So we'll see where it heads in the future. I think it's going to go in Aboriginal Australians' favour for sure as court decisions and things emerge.
One thing, putting these two stories together, though, if Lydia Thorpe, she's saying we want a treaty, and of course that would be a treaty between the Indigenous people, the First Peoples of Australia, and the Crown. But Lydia Thorpe's not recognising the crown; she's just recognising the Queen's hairs, apparently. So
No, that's right.
can you make a treaty with somebody's hairs? I'm not sure that works out somehow.
It's interesting the sort of pretzels into which we get twisted with these sort of issues. And I even think the concept of making a treaty is more or less a European concept and probably flows from the idea of sovereign nations making treaties with one another.
Yeah.
And these are all modern European ideas more than traditional owner ideas. So I'm not sure it passes the smell test at that level, but it's only what you can get away with in court, right? So that's all that matters.
Maybe it's nostril hairs if it's not passing the smell test. There we go. Now, the Aussie banks, of course, continuing to make record profits, some of that at the expense of New Zealand interest rates. But apparently they're also working on bringing down their costs by, instead of going to visit the bank manager, you may be getting a mortgage from a robot, I hear.
That's it. The big four banks, and this will affect New Zealand because the big four banks here own all the banks in New Zealand.
Yeah.
They're doing everything they can now to pump out the AI technology so that pretty much things that the bank manager used to check, like your bank loan application or the rest of it, is going to be done by robotics and AI. And they look to, and it's not just call centres. I mean, call centres is the low hanging fruit, but things like looking at your loan and approving your loan application, that is a bit higher off the ground than low-hanging fruit. And it turns out there could be thousands and thousands of jobs at stake. And just imagine that's one industry. This will go through all industries. So it's going to be a radically transformed world because of what AI can do.
And hey, at the moment, sometimes you go onto the bank website and they say, "Hey, prove to me you're not a robot. How many traffic lights can you see in this picture?" Maybe we'll be able to ask that same question to our bank managers in the future.
Well, of course, we'll be saying, "Prove to me you're not a robot." They'll be saying, "Well, of course I'm a robot." I mean, I've got to be honest though. A lot of the people I've dealt with at the banks over the years, Andrew, have felt like robots. So maybe there's not going to be much of a change here.
Maybe the robots will be nicer than some bank managers. Yeah, there we go.
I've heard also this is coming to the priesthood as well. I mean, obviously I've left my church behind now, but which is a good thing. I've come at the right time. But one of the things that can happen is you can do confession now to a robotic priest.
Oh yeah. That sounds like a bunch of fun. Craig, thank you so much for your comments, your insight. All the best with what happens next in Australia. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Bless you, mate. So good to talk. Cheers.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.